everybody,
Hello.
how's it going?
Welcome. We're really so glad you're here, and it's such a pleasure to welcome you to our book launch for our first virtual poetry reading and book launch for Wayfinding.
hmm
We were thinking that we could start with a little bit about the origin of Parks and Points.
Yeah, so Parks and Point started as a project back in 2016. We had just gotten married. It was also the National Park Centennial, and we were kind of thinking about what we could do. It was, through our own history before that of going to a lot of different parks, national parks, state parks, city parks, we'd really had a lot of love for public lands and these sort of shared lands. So we kind of developed the website as a sort of a thing for us to be able to write together, to work together. But then we
Share.
started reaching out and getting other people to create and share as well about their love for public lands through different essays, travel logs, and then eventually the poetry contest
Yeah.
and event.
Yes. And after our first essay contest, we realized that it would be a lot of fun to integrate another genre. And with National Poetry Month, we decided to launch a poetry series. That first year, we received, I think, almost 300 submissions, and we realized that there was really a lot of space for this kind of writing to be published and shared. And we first and foremost, we've done this each year. We both read every poem, and as you can imagine, it's very hard to turn down a lot of the poems that we receive. April is a short month, and we always want to publish more than we can in that month. So we feel very fortunate to have read so much beautiful writing about parks, and we first and foremost want to thank the poets who have submitted work to us and shared work as part of our series, and a lot of whom are participating in this book project, and from the very first moment we mentioned the idea of a book, we ran it past a few poets both over the phone and via email, and felt an immediate tide of support for this project. And so we're really grateful for that. And as I was saying earlier, that we do feel like a little sort of family has formed around this book, because of the way that we've sort of moved into the future with it. And we really, really want to thank the contributing poets. And we do have two other events in which poets from the book will be reading, May 5th and May 26th, each with a ranger-led tour of a National Park Service site. So we're super excited about those, and all are welcome to come back and attend. And we also want to give a shout out, thank you to Nicholas Wright, who is behind a lot of the design of the book, and who you saw a few of the slides in the slideshow as a little bit of a glimpse inside the book. And we're very fortunate. He's a family member, Derek's brother, my brother-in-law, and he's really a wonderful designer, and has guided a lot of the vision for the book so beautifully.
Yeah.
Um,
And so, yeah, and it's been great. It's also coming out through Finishing Line Press, which is really exciting. We're really thrilled to be a part of their family now. So many of the poets I know have actually published through Finishing Line as well, and they're such a great resource and publisher for the poetry world. And yeah, we are currently in the pre-sale period for that, so
yes,
I'll
I'll
drop that
be
there in
sharing the link.
the old
Um,
chat.
and we'd also like to welcome Ranger Steve Phan tonight from Camp Nelson National Monument, one of the newest National Park Service sites, and who's going to give us a little inside the site tour. So we can't wait for that. But before we do that, I just wanted to give a little personal introduction to all of the poets who are reading tonight. You're welcome to unmute your mic at the end, and we could do an actual out loud applause maybe for the reading poets. So without further ado, welcome Mary Ardery, Jack Buck, Pamela Carter, Amanda Lin Costa, Andy Fogle, Christine Gelineau, Mike Good, Susan Marsh, Rebecca Olander, Sarah Stern, Dorothy Swoope, and Kerry Trautman. Let's turn it over to Ranger Steve for our visit to Camp Nelson.
All right. Thank you for the invite. It's an honor to be here. My name is Steve Phan. I'm currently serving as the acting chief of interpretation, education, and visitor services at Camp Nelson National Monument, one of the newest national park units as a part of the National Park Service, number 418. We are now up to 423. And so we seem to add a park every 2 or so years. So we'll see where this goes from here. My home park is actually in Washington, D.C. I work for a very unique regional program called the Civil War Defenses of Washington, where we manage Civil War sites in 3 national parks, Rock Creek Park, National Capital Parks East, and George Washington Memorial Parkway. So I've been in Kentucky since mid-January, so, and I'll be here until early May. And you don't want to see my background, well, my real background, because I'm in my hotel room right now. Okay, so been staying in my hotel room for about almost 4 months now. So, but let's talk about Camp Nelson National Monument. I'm sure for most of you, you may likely have never heard of Camp Nelson National Monument or what exactly it preserves and interprets and protects. Well, I'm very happy to share that with you. I see a shout out from my Rock Creek friends, but let me share my screen here. And I created this PowerPoint about the one and only Camp Nelson National Monument. So I look forward to sharing this with you. And I just called it a monumental legacy. So I'm a Civil War historian. Camp Nelson is a Civil War site, and it's a very powerful site. Unlike a lot of Civil War sites that the National Park Service administers across the country, we are not a battlefield. We're, in many ways, we're kind of the story behind the battle. We've got a lot more layers that you might find on a battlefield, and you're going to see what that looks like as I move forward in the program here. So this is one of my favorite quotes describing Camp Nelson from Reverend John G. Fee. He was an abolitionist. He was obviously a religious leader, a reverend, and he spent a lot of time at Camp Nelson during the Civil War. And he says, Camp Nelson was the rendezvous of soldiery and birthplace of liberty to Kentucky. It is hallowed in the minds of thousands. And you're going to see what I mean by that. Camp Nelson was kind of a late war aberration in many ways. It was officially established by the U.S. Army, the Union Army, or the Federal Army. You could hear it a number of ways it's described, in 1863. And if you see my mouse, the camp is literally located right here, about 20 miles south of Lexington, Kentucky. Off to the left is the mighty Kentucky River. And off to the east is another waterway called Hickman Creek. And the camp will sit on this high plateau. So it's a very defensible position. So Camp Nelson, it's a military installation used first and foremost to gather supplies, men, material, as really, I call it a forward operating base for the Union Army to move south in the really East Tennessee, parts of Virginia, and even down into Georgia. So that's why this camp was first established in April of 1863. We're getting close to the anniversary of the camp's establishment. But it evolves over the course of the Civil War. And I want you to really kind of take that in and understand what will happen here as the Civil War evolves. Camp Nelson evolves. And you're going to see a lot of wonderful historic images of the fort. The U.S. Army will erect about 300 buildings to support the war effort here, workshops and horse stables and bakeries and munition shops, quartermaster shops, hospitals, horse and mule rehabilitation centers, 300 structures, 4,000 acres. And that's just the military aspect of this site. And you're going to see some more historic images here. You can see where federal artillery is being lined up for service in the field. Encampment, there's a lot of federal soldiers that were here through the course of the Civil War. But we're really going to talk about something much deeper than the military aspect. Here's a really great image. You can see the road right there, which will take you either north into Lexington or south into Danville. And this is area that is now managed by the National Park Service. And that's really the hub, the center of the manufacturing and commerce in the camp during the course of the Civil War, okay? And you can see more type of workshops, a lot of civilian workers there. But think about this. We're seeing images of military installations, but really focus on the people. This is the story of people, the lives of people, what they struggled to gain and earn, and really their experience during the Civil War will be very traumatic in many ways. And you'll see what I'm talking about, because this is the aspect that makes Camp Nelson nationally prominent. see how much better off we are now that we was 4 years ago. It used to be 500 miles to get to Canada from Lexington, but now it is only 18 miles. Camp Nelson is now our Canada. Think about that. This was quoted from an African-American soldier. Kentucky remains in the United States or the Union during the Civil War, but it's a border state, which still allows slavery. So there will be tens of thousands of enslaved African Americans in Kentucky during the course of the Civil War, trying to figure out their next step. Is their next step going to be north and across the Ohio River into Ohio, or is it going to be towards Canada, or are they going to make their way to Union bases and camps to take one step closer to earn their emancipation? And at Camp Nelson, the answer is a little bit of everything. It's quite tenuous, and it is combative. It's challenged. It's ever changing. It's soluble. This idea of emancipation is something that we really grapple with at Camp Nelson National Monument. And you can see here, this is the big evolution we're talking about. By 1864, after really 2 years of resistance, the Federal Army, the War Department, will finally at last authorize the organization and recruitment of Black regiments in Kentucky. It is a dramatic step forward during the history of our country, certainly the Civil War. As I said, Kentucky is a border state. The Emancipation Proclamation does not touch or does have effect in Kentucky. Think about that. People talk about January 1st being, Freedom Day or Emancipation Day. It certainly wasn't for enslaved African Americans in Kentucky. And in 1864, there will start enlisting African American soldiers. There's going to be about 8 regiments. Over 10,000 men will be recruited at this camp during the course of the Civil War. It's one of the largest African American recruiting camps in the entire country, either second or third largest behind Louisiana, New Orleans. Absolutely dramatic here. And their service will be really laying the foundation towards their steps toward not only emancipation, but citizenship. This is for the soldiers. What about their families? That's another story. So you're going to see, this is the human aspect of Camp Nelson that we want to connect all visitors with, all people from across the United States and the world, stories of these African Americans. Remember, nearly all of them are formerly enslaved. Their status as freedmen really only comes when they enlist with the Union Army. And by the way, that status is not allocated to their family, including their wives and children. So we're going to have, these are just 2 of nearly 10,000 African Americans that were recruited at Camp Nelson that will go and serve in different theaters of the war, including out in Virginia. We had the anniversary of Appomattox, really the end of the major fighting in the Eastern Theater. The 25th Corps was comprised entirely of African American soldiers, and they fought with distinction in 1864 and 1865. So let's go from the soldiers to their families. Many of them are the wives and children of our colored troops. They were called United States Colored Troops, USCT. There will be much suffering among them this winter unless shelters are built and rations issued to them. For the sake of humanity, I hope you will issue the proper order in this case as soon as possible. General Burbridge to Secretary of War Edwin Stanton, November 29th, 1864. So this covers perhaps the darkest moment period at Camp Nelson, called the expulsion, when the federal commander of the camp orders the removal of Black refugees from the camp. And believe it or not, this includes the wives and children of the Black soldiers. This is known as the expulsion. There was about 7 such expulsions that took place in 1864, because you can imagine, African-American men are coming to federal lines. They're looking for employment. They're looking to enlist in the Army. They're going to be joined by their families who are also escaping enslavement. But their status is open because Kentucky is still a slave state. So about 400 are removed from the camp by force during a harsh winter storm before the order is rescinded, and about 250 or so make it back to camp. Over the next week into the next month, over 100 die of illness and exposure. So one of the darkest moments of the American Civil War, really, I believe, obviously, certainly the history of Camp Nelson, but one of the moments that incidents that we don't really recall or remember or know about in regards to American history. And that's something that we will really be sharing and highlighting and really honoring over the next, as we become a national park that more people know about. You're going to hear a lot about the expulsion and the people that were at this camp. And so what happens? Well, the Army and the government respond to the cries and to this crisis. And there's going to be a refugee camp literally established at Camp Nelson. And you can see the houses that these formerly enslaved people are living at. And by the way, it's only until 1865 when Congress rights the wrong and the wives and the children of the soldiers are emancipated. It was not until 1865 that happened. But there's going to be a large infrastructure established to support these formerly enslaved people. There's going to be schools and kitchens and hospitals, tents. Really, it's a refugee. It becomes a refugee camp. It goes from a military supply base to a recruitment camp to a refugee camp, all over the course of about 2 years. And there's even they called this the home of colored refugees, and they established a school system there as well. And think about all those people you see in this image. These were all enslaved people, men, women, children. Imagine how many had been torn apart from their mothers and their fathers, how many were missing their brothers and their sisters, how many had husbands or fathers or brothers that served in the United States colored troops that would never see their family members again, because a lot of these men would die of disease or die in action. And some of the units that served or that were organized at Camp Nelson remained in the U.S. Army until 1867, almost a year and a half after the Civil War. So what do we have here today? Well, I want to share with you, this is from our foundational document for the National Park Service at Camp Nelson. We're located in Jessamine County, Kentucky. We preserves and interprets the historic and archaeological resources of the Union Army Supply Depot that became one of the largest Civil War era recruitment and training centers for United States colored troops and an African-American refugee camp. This monument is a testament to the courage, resiliency, and perseverance of those seeking freedom from slavery and pursuing self-determination and after the Civil War, during and after the Civil War. I want you to think about that again. A testament to courage, resiliency, perseverance for those seeking freedom from slavery and pursuing self-determination during and after the Civil War. That is our park purpose. That is something we carry with a heavy heart. And we think about this each day when we go to the Camp Nelson. So what do we have here today? Well, unfortunately, in March of 1866, the camp was closed by the Federal Army. There was a lot of resistance from local inhabitants that there would not be a large Black community, free Black community growing here after the Civil War. So the camp itself was dismantled. Almost 300 buildings were just taken down. And these freedmen, as they would call them, formerly enslaved people, had to go to different places. They went to Louisville, which became a very dynamic African-American center during and after the Civil War. They went north and crossed the Ohio River into Ohio. They went as far south as Kansas and became exodusters. And there's a small descendant community that stayed around, and we still have ties to them today. So if you come and see the park, you're gonna have about 450 acres. Uh, as you saw with the park perch, it's mostly archaeological. Everything is underneath the ground. We know where the majority of the buildings are at here today. It's an absolutely stunning park, and we're in spring now, so it's starting to blossom. It's turning to turn green, and the flowers and plants are coming out. It's a very, very special site. Just imagine, I talk about history at our sites as layers. There's just so many layers of history, of human interest stories, of voices, of perspectives. We can all find them on the ground at Camp Nelson National Monument. This obelisk honors a cemetery. We call it Graveyard Number 1. And beneath that obelisk are refugees, both white and black, that fled here during the course of the Civil War. And there's also the African-American refugees, of course. There was United States colored troops and white soldiers that were buried here. They were moved after the war to Graveyard Number 2. We now call that Camp Nelson National Cemetery. As you can see, I wanted to show you some of the things and some of the beauty that exists on this very powerful landscape that can attract visitors with all different backgrounds and thoughts and perspectives. We welcome you all to Camp Nelson National Monument. And I wanted to show you this very quickly. If you look off to the left, you're going to see this stone right here. This was a part of the fortifications that was built, listen to this, by impressed enslaved African Americans during the war in 1863. When the Army established the camp, they needed to fortify the camp. So the Army went to slaveholders and paid them for their labor. So if you go out to our site today, you're going to see this stonework, this earthwork right here. That's a tangible physical connection to the enslaved people that were here during the war. I found that one of the most compelling, powerful aspects of this site. You can literally go out to our site here today, the park, and you can see enslaved people. You can, in many ways, see the work they did, what they had to labor to do to take one step towards their own emancipation. And you can see it's very much like farmland, but it's a very gorgeous rural park in South Central Kentucky. And that's one of the historic buildings, the only historic building around from the Civil War, called the White House. It was used as officers' quarters during the Civil War. We're in the process of doing a very heavy rehab project there. And that's our visitor center. So look at that vista, that sky. It's a dramatic, powerful landscape. And if you come to Camp Nelson, you can knock on the door and I'll open it for you. And you can come in and learn about the site, okay? And it's a new national park unit. It was first established as a county park for about 20 years. You can see really the sign that's behind the wrapping there. We also have United States Colored Troops Living History Group that we're connected with. And now the National Park Service has arrived. We are now Camp Nelson National Monument. And currently there's 4 of us at the park, myself included. So we'd like to virtually welcome you to Camp Nelson National Monument and look forward to having you visit the park soon. And we'd be honored to have you. And you can see our website there, our Facebook page, which I will promote. I launched that page in February. We're about 50 likes away from 1,000. So friends, please go on Facebook and like Camp Nelson National Monument. And I'd be forever grateful. If you need anything from me, I'm at your service. There is my email address. So I'll conclude with this. I thank everyone so much for being a part of this. My inspiration for working for the National Park Service is connecting communities of color to our public lands. And I know poetry and history and just human beings can do that. So I thank so much. I look forward to hearing all the participants tonight. Thank you.
Whew. Thank you so much. That was incredible. I think that we all can't wait to plan a trip there.
Yeah.
I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, it's a very moving, yeah, and just a very
interpretation.
powerful park as well. And yeah, having had very little to know about it before, this was a really very, yeah, moving presentation.
We did want to give people a chance to ask questions. Maybe we could take 3 or 4, either in the chat, or if you want to do a virtual hand raise, you can go to the participants window and raise your hand. If you have a question for Ranger Steve, we could take 3 or 4 questions. If not, that's okay.
Hey, I recognize some names there. Wonderful. Thank you. So
Okay.
we're a developing park. We're in the process of hiring permanent staff right now, even interns and volunteers. I, we're passing it forward, right? I had the great honor of hiring 3 interns last week. So the next generation of public stewards, of land stewards, of park rangers, it's really, really exciting. And who knows, there could be a poet in there and we could really, I would, so my friend is a spoken word poet, an educator, a writer back in Colorado. So when I hear poetry and I look forward to hearing all you speak tonight, I think about him and we're going to be doing poetry in Camp Nelson in the near future. So I look forward to doing that.
That'd be amazing.
And it looks like we have 2 questions in the chat. How
Okay,
did the
yes.
idea, mhm.
How did the idea of the national park for the site commence? Great presentation. Thank you, Rich. That's a great question. And it's kind of a different story for each national park unit. There's 2 in this area that were established within the past few years. Camp Nelson National Monument and Mill Springs Battlefield National Monument. The name National Monument should give you an idea. So, as I said, this park was established about 20 years ago by the county, Jessamine County, and there was a foundation that was really instrumental in really acquiring land and building some of the buildings there. But they went to the local congressman or congressperson, and they said, "Hey, you should put a bill up to designate this as a national park unit." And it was going through Congress. And at that point, the president, the White House in 2018, President Trump, they saw this bill, and he basically used his power through the Antiquities Act to establish both Camp Nelson and Mill Springs Battlefield National Monuments. So that's how we were established. Like a lot of the national monuments, but you've heard of before, Devil's Tower and things like that. It was done by the Antiquities Act. Okay, do we have any stories of families related to the soldiers from Camp Nelson? Well, that's a very interesting question, Annie. And that's something that we're in the process of developing. I think the county did a lot of years of wonderful research here to kind of find out where a lot of these families went to after the Civil War. So, we're in the process of going through pension records and things like that to learn more about the families. As I said, there was a descendant community that formed around Camp Nelson after the Civil War. And there's a very small community still there, still directly tied. There's a reverend that lives in the area. One of his ancestors served in a Black regiment that served at Camp Nelson. So we're in the process, of really creating a genuine trust relationship with a lot of the locals in the community to really build this up moving forward. But yeah, that's something we're just getting started with. As I said, 10,000 soldiers. You can perhaps double that number with the number of family members from children and wives and sisters. I mean, everyone was here. It's really incredible to think about. And we're just starting to flesh it out, and we're just getting started. So follow us along our journey, and we look forward to sharing that with you.
All right. Thank you so, so much. We really appreciate it. We're so honored you're here. And that was such a wonderful presentation. And we just want to mention we have 2 more park ranger presentations with our next readings. On May 5th, we'll have Ranger Ashley Weymouth here from Hot Springs National Park, which is another really fascinating place, huge connection to civil rights as well, even though it's ostensibly about a geologic wonder. So there's a lot of layers, as we know, and she's an amazing speaker as well. And then on May 26th, it looks like we'll have a ranger from LBJ National Historic Site joining us, who's worked at a bunch of different units, and maybe will take us through a few places. So now for some poetry. We're going to start off at America's first national park, Yellowstone National Park, with Amanda Lin Costa. You can call her Amanda.
Hello, how are you? Thank you so much, Ranger Steve, for sharing such an important part of American history. I didn't know about it. It was really an honor to learn. I guess since I'm kicking off this series of readings, I feel like I'd first like to really thank Amy, Beth, and Derek for putting together these lovely events, and just on behalf of all the poets for including us in this lovely book, Wayfinding. A little bit about me. I am living in New York for the past 10 years. And with the exception of this crazy stay-at-home year, my partner and I have booked every vacation around visiting a national park. Exploring national parks has always been the perfect time to rejuvenate and find peace away from the city's noises and chaos. But for us, it's also time for a little friendly rivalry. My partner and I are both photographers. He's a professional and I'm an enthusiastic amateur. And so our visits to national parks usually involve both of us pointing cameras in an attempt to capture nature's beauty, and then later comparing images. My poem, Untamed, is inspired by these explorations and is a bit of a wordplay on Yellowstone's stunning Artist Point and the point in art that is the basis for figure ground relationships. Untamed. Because you're drawn to vistas, I choose the macro, exploring moss on the north side, droplets of water on tender leaves. You seamlessly switch lenses, f-stops, and shutter speeds. I prefer to open wide, wander in the shadows, fungi found beneath felled trees, a bud not yet broken. At Artist Point, we hold hands, unable to resist. The river snaking for miles, rushing, falling, surreal, animated, refusing to be captured. Thank you.
Beautiful, thank you. And what a beautiful introduction to your poem too. So next stop, Blawnox Island with Mike Good.
Hi, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, Amanda, for your poem. It's an honor to be in this anthology with you and to get to hear your work aloud. Thanks again also just to Amy and Derek, and also for Steve for that wonderful presentation. I was moved, surprised, kind of the experience of an A-rate poem, so I was really touched by a lot of that. A quick bit about, I guess, myself in this poem. Blawnox is the place. I have to be careful. I could talk about the island for a very long time. Before I moved to Southwestern Virginia for graduate school, my job through an AmeriCorps program was essentially coordinating a restoration plan for a local land trust. The island itself is about 9 miles from the point of Pittsburgh. It's called Sycamore Island. What else should I say? I don't know. It's just a very important place to me for so many reasons. I think I grew a lot as a person during the years I worked for the land trust. And then I moved down to Southwest Virginia for graduate school. And I feel like when I wrote the draft of this poem, it was a nice growth moment for me as a poet. Okay, so I'll probably almost shut up. One other thing about the poem is there's one regional word for a tree called in the poem Indian cigar tree. You might know it as a catalpa tree, just has these kind of long legumy sort of seeds that if you smoke as a cigar tastes very bad. But that's in the poem. And then yeah, and the poem's dedicated to Allegheny Land Trust. I guess land trusts everywhere that are doing a lot of work to conserve land between those larger tracts of wonderful conserved, national and state parks. Then also the poem is dedicated to my friend who is one of the most dedicated stewards of the island, Rick Duncan. And yeah, I'll read the poem. But, thank you all again for being here. So, Field Guide to Sycamore Island, Blawnox, PA. Morels break into damp spring light, past the three-trunked sycamore, on the channel side where river traffic flows, past the great blue heron nest, rising above the pebbled shore. Cool barges tear silty loam and leave river rocks for the Allegheny to hawk and swallow, where turkey vultures sun their wings like black crosses on electric trees, where cedar waxwings trill inside the Indian cigar tree, scratched spice bush potpourri, orange impatiens exploding. Do not live like the wolf spiders in the storage silo, dining on tadpoles, never knowing the dredge spoils that rise above the jet skis and fishing poles, never drinking the sumac tea that boils into red paint, or holding the delta of green cottonwood leaves that twist and conspire, never rising with the Atlantis toward the canopy, sprouting neckbeards, about girdled cambium, as our island slowly deposits itself down the river. I could open my eyes and peel grapevines off soft wood. I could break down at any second. I could smell acrid water pouring from the discharge. I could see myself burning in the sky. I could have been an eagle. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Now we're heading to Ohio with Kerry Trautman. I hope I'm saying.
Hi there. So I have 5 children. So when we travel, we always are sure to hit up parks in the areas wherever we are. This is a great way to include everybody in the family. There's something for everybody to enjoy. So the first poem I'm going to read is called First Campout. The tent's taut nylon flapped, crackled in night's variable winds. In the distance, the thunder of storms having moved on eastward. The baby slept fitfully, barely relaxing into steady breaths, dreaming perhaps of lightning just beyond the soggy meadow with its shrieking red-winged blackbirds, or of the campfire and its newfound threatening beauty, waking intermittently in the unfamiliar dark with its shuddering, movable walls groping for my face, grabbing hold with both sweaty palms, pressing his forehead to my cheek, searching in my skin for a way home. And this next poem, which was also featured in Parks and Points, is called Marblehead. The lighthouse lamp never lit, nor the caretaker's cottage, their insides boarded, locked against tourist children, storms, and mayflies. No kites, despite the always wind, no swing sets or slides. Young, I was willing to teeter on seaweedy boulders, ankle, shin deep in the slick, cold Lake Erie side of the waves. Not the still Sandusky Bay shore of infancy, of railways, of Grandpa's coal dock cranes, of perching off Uncle Tom's Lyman. I knew the water dropped off deeper somewhere. Kelly's Island on the horizon with its snakes, Canada beyond with glaciers and caribou. Older now, I would be willing to abandon my inland everything for a 1940s cottage where a family summered away from the glass factory, bank, and schoolhouse. I would plant a peach tree, stitch a kite, allow constant wind and gulls to weave through my clapboards, to clothe me with perch and wet sand smells, and wait for the light to be restored. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much. It's really something to hear the work read aloud. It's very special. Okay, Andy Fogle. Well, we're heading to Bolton Landing and Naples, Florida. Andy Fogle is a Parks and Points and
All right. First, I got a few thank yous. One is to and shout outs. One is to my friend Hope, who's out there somewhere tuning in from not DC. I believe Hope you're out in the mountains in Luray, Virginia. I think my wife Marla's out there somewhere with maybe my son Watson. This is Penelope here. Thank you, Penn. And also Vinny and Margot are out there. My in-laws, I'll say a quick bit about them in a minute before the first of these two poems I'll read. Most especially, just like everybody else, it's Amy Beth and Derek for marrying the outdoors and the arts, for being so good to some of my poems, and also for me, a long essay that I'll put a link to in there as well, about hiking the Adirondacks in the wake of my mom's death. I'm from Virginia Beach. I spent the middle hunk of my life in the DC area, and have been here upstate New York for something like 15 or 16 years by now. I teach high school and so forth. This first one is called Sunset for Now at Naples, Florida. I owe my in-laws especially the big thank you, because they make our most nearly annual trips to Florida during the winter time possible, because we get to stay with them and see lots of cool and beautiful things. Naples is on the west coast of Florida. And this is just us going to watch the the sunset, because people do that. Like it's just a regular part of their lives. Like today, let's go watch the sunset, and tomorrow, let's go watch the sunset at the beach again. So the Sunset for Now at Naples, Florida. Check, check. All the standard elements are here. Sea, sky, horizon, the small shelled shore lip, scattered palms, a happily zigzagged pier, a boulder jetty that works for now. It's like walking through a photo album. A father holding his small daughter, then hands with his wife, who later chase stalks her son. The whole family of four, framed by these tokens and an aging man's squint, he's three things to these four people: father, father-in-law, and grandfather. That's Vin. And his tremor does not for now. So then you pan the scene, a group of 20-somethings timing their leap for the camera on a tripod. A man with construction company t-shirt teaches his son to surf. Smokers fume on the wood steps leading from lot to sand. Retirees in lawn chairs with coolers of boxed wine and cutting boards. In a few years, some of these kids will be big, some of these elders ash, and vice versa. They've gathered to witness another day pass. The air is stable and clear, the light less scattered. So when the sun slips, they glimpse the green flash, this treasured mirage. And then, for now, they all applaud. Second one is it's called Throwing Ice at Bolton Landing. That's on the west side of Lake George up here in upstate. I don't know, we've been there a couple times, and we went there just, I think, a week ago. I don't know, I think this was it was in March, it says it in the poem. And the lake was thawing, and we just were spending time, just goofing around. I grew up near the beach, so shores are especially important to me. And I get to see them in the winter now. I get to see these frozen bodies of water, and it was starting to thaw, and we just started like breaking up the ice and throwing it out onto the lake, like just, kind of rowdy, rowdy people looking for something to do. I think on a serious note, I think this poem is like being partially about any number of forms of recovery. Part of it's just, recovering at the end of a long, ugly winter. And things are starting to thaw and sort of break up and open up again. Is also recovering from grief, and it can be recovery in any kind of number of ways you want to think about. The poem is this long metaphor, what the lake is doing and what people are doing. It also, I think, has something to do with social change too. That's enough. Here it is. The lake is thawing on slabs. The lake is thawing in slabs on the shore. March, and we've come here on a whim to see what it's like in an opposite season. No one here, the playground like a widow, the restrooms locked tight, but water and sky are one blue in counterpoint shades. It's a hard shine on this small flat of muck after months of loss after loss, turn upon turn, when we have not often been ourselves, none of us. Like others, this is slow to change, its temperature steadier than air's, and like others, this ice is over from perimeter to center. Our edges, fragile in the days, also froze first. I am not one for displays, but I am one for to hell with it. One of me takes a palm-sized chunk of ice and sidearms it east, this quick spinning fragment sliding along span. Another me does the same, and another, and another. Our motions like chants, stoop, rise, and sling. The thinnest ones shatter before going far, but they are transparent layers on top of a vast opacity. And there might be a lesson in that. When I move to the big slabs, I feel them in my gut when I throw. They stay solid when they fall, wider revolutions accelerating upon impact, and we smile at all that. Out to the center, which will stay frozen longer and more deeply, floating on itself. It'll take a little more time than here as we keep throwing. It just takes time. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you so much. And so glad you're here, Penelope. And Andy's essay on Parks and Points is called The Lake That Shuts Itself In. It's very beautiful. It was a finalist in our last essay contest. So now let's welcome Mary Ardery, and we're heading to Western North Carolina and Lake Charlevoix.
Okay, thank you. As everyone has said, Amy, Beth, and Derek, I really appreciate this. And also, as folks have said, I love the overlap of nature and the literary world. So this is a really special event. This first poem is called Zebra Mussels at Lake Charlevoix. I turned inward as Indiana hills and cornfields transformed into a blur of Michigan cherry orchards and skinny pines. 9 hours with mom, dad, and 2 older sisters who preferred music to talking. At the cabin, cousin Sarah was eager to play. All day we hauled treasures from the fresh water, bucket after plastic bucket of zebra mussels. We pried them open with our small fingers to collect the oozing reward, the invasive species' inedible meat. Such viscosity was kept like a secret inside those striped shells known to slice souls if one day you forgot your water shoes. It was an early study of exterior versus interior, a casing that draws blood, but when cracked the right way, yields to something delicate. And the second one is called The Blue Ghost Fireflies of Western North Carolina. I lived in North Carolina for a couple years working as a field guide. And Amy, Beth, and Derek published my essay about that. And that was one of my very first publications. So I have a special, very soft spot for Parks and Points and just eternal gratitude. So The Blue Ghost Fireflies of Western North Carolina. The blue flickers in the mountain meadow caught us by surprise. Their dance held majesty as much as play, like fairies, intentional with their mischief. Oh, tactile pulse, theirs. Oh, thrum of light, ours. Growing up, we called them lightning bugs. Their glow was slow and yellow and easily trapped. In Indiana, there were things I didn't even know to desire. The way a man's stubble burns lips differently at sea level than 5,000 feet up. The way some light, when captured, lasts only the night, but other light burns brighter. Other light will haunt. Thank you.
Thank you so much. To Marconi Beach with Sarah Stern.
Thank you. I echo everyone's gratitude to Amy, Beth, and Derek, and to Ranger Phan, and all of the readers and all of the listeners. Thank you. So I'm coming to you from New York City, the Bronx, where it's raining, but we've had some great weather up till today. The short poem I'll read is called Marconi Beach, and it's the national seashore on Cape Cod. And the inspiration was, it's a place I go with my family have gone for many years, but one time we were there extremely late at night in late August, and we thought we were alone, but we weren't. Marconi Beach. Midnight moon so bright, it made night the negative of night. Waves, late August, foaming, the same mistakes over and over, until what's left is the flatness of things. This black stone worn down, the beach grasses too, the horizontal lovers beyond the break. Thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful reading. Okay, now to Acadia National Park with Christine. Not sure if I'm saying your last name correctly, Gelineau?
That's fine. That's a little more of the French, French pronunciation than what my family does, and I won't get into all the reasons why that's so. But Gelineau is fine. Gelineau is how we used to pronounce it, but that's fine. So once again, I want to thank Amy, Beth, and Derek, and all of you that have come. Amy, Beth, and Derek for the site, for the book, for hosting this. I really enjoyed Ranger Phan's presentation, and I particularly enjoyed that we often think of the national parks as wilderness landscape, which many of them are, but a number of them are historical landscapes also. And I love the reminder that narrative, the stories that we have are also an important part of the national parks. And his reminder that I was really happy to hear about that awareness of an outreach to all Americans to feel an ownership of their national parks and monuments. So it's been really a lovely evening, and also to get to visit the places, some of the places I have been, places that I haven't yet been. It's just nice to hear such a, take a kind of a virtual tour by poem. So the poem that I'm going to, the short poem I'm going to read for you tonight, it's Acadia National Park in Maine. It's my own favorite of the national parks. As someone who lives in the Northeast, it's the national park that I visited the most often. But even having visited the Grand Canyon, Bryce, Zion, Yosemite, which are all absolutely wonderful, still there is something about Acadia's terrain, the way the mountains meet the sea, that just calls to me. So this poem is from my very first visit there many, many, many years ago, the late 1960s. Despite all the decades that have passed, that the memory of that first visit there is still fresh for me. So this poem is called Seawall. My first trip to Mount Desert Island was the summer I turned 20, 4 Augusts after the August my mother died. A camping trip with the friend who would one day become my sister-in-law. Our first day on the island, we picked up a hitchhiker, a young guy from Bleecker Street in the village, visiting Acadia as we were. Caution tells us we should never have opened ourselves to him like that. How impossible it is now to explain the generational trust we felt then, what we read in one another's clothes and hair, the woman I would know for the rest of my life, and the young man we would never see again, roamed the park contentedly, platonically, while he took a veteran's pleasure in showing us where the sweetest blueberries clung to their granite escarpment, where the mud flats plump with quahogs were. None of us seemed to know the skies well enough to have heard of the Perseids, but he knew Seawall. And on our last night there, We carried blankets out to muffle the stony beach and lay down in the dark, rocked by the lapping of the unseen waves, easy together beneath the shower of frolicking stars. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now to Washington State with Pam Carter, who was having a little Wi-Fi trouble, but it looks like maybe it's better. Hoping so.
Hi, yeah, thank you. I moved rooms. I hope that that helps. Thank you so much, everyone. I could spend a long time echoing what I've heard so far, and I'll just say a big thank you. It's been lovely. Yes, I'm in Seattle, Washington, and the spot that inspired my poem is Red Pass between Lundin Peak and Red Mountain in the Alpine Lakes wilderness of the Cascade Mountains that are just an hour away to the trailhead. And you start out on the Pacific Crest Trail and go up the Commonwealth Basin to this wonderful tiny saddle and can look into these very young mountains that are very craggy. I have a couple of personal things that I wanted to share today because we get to do a little promotion. This is my book that came out in November, and today I got the site of my new book's cover, which is also from Finishing Line Press. And so I'm excited to share that. It comes out in August, held together with tape and glue. Thanks. This is my poem, Hiking to Red Pass. Late summer, almost fall. It's like I found my childhood tucked under these cedars. And I am 10 and lazing on hot stone, watching ants. For the first time in a long time, I feel safe. Now I know the old granite wall always waits for my remembering somewhere at my physical center, available with you on this hike, or even at my city desk as I scrounge for perfection, click sites for research, recheck links and spelling as if these secure a famous future where you hear me and everyone gathers to listen to my wisdom. The past is contained in our dark insides, coated in chemicals which replace daily. Somehow they flow the known channels, the way sentences store a truth, even if unwritten. All day, anywhere, we may dive back to then. At the pass, we gaze north and south. We see into spaces where time is slow to round mountains.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay, Dorothy Swoope, who helped launch our series of micro poems. We had some very, very short poems we wanted to publish, so we started a micro poem series.
It's actually a very short poem. I'm having a bit of internet trouble as well, so I hope you can see and hear me. I'm coming from the south coast of Australia at the moment, but I did grow up in New Jersey and got to explore so much of the beautiful parks, and particularly state parks. Growing up, we camped a lot and moved to Oregon before I came here. So it's a beautiful country, and Australia is as well. So I live in what they call the bush. So I'm surrounded by trees looking out to sea. So I feel very lucky. And, you know, this is called looking up. Things just happen. Silver glint of wings in flight cast confetti across the cerulean sky. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, we're going back to Cape Cod with Rebecca Olander.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, Sarah, we're Facebook friends and also lovers of Wellfleet. So Marconi will show up again here. I need to echo thanks to Amy, Beth, and Derek, to Finishing Line Press, to my fellow readers and anthology mates. What a treasure of an evening. Really, really cool to follow Dorothy from Australia. Just beautiful. I also want to thank Ranger Steve. That was so interesting. What a gift. So I am coming to you from Western Massachusetts. I love to spend time near the ocean, though, in the eastern part of the state. And one of my favorite spots is Wellfleet on Cape Cod. I was there in the fall of 2018 in the aftermath of 2 local deaths. One was by drowning and one was by shark attack in Truro and Wellfleet, respectively. But also it was in the midst of the Kavanaugh hearings. And I found solace visiting the old Marconi wireless station, which is part of the Cape Cod National Seashore. It's a site there where global wireless communication was born. And it got me thinking about communication, but also the educational descriptions on the signs there. I hadn't read them before. And they talked about how the area was maintained. And it reminded me that renewals are possible. So this is also a short poem about Wellfleet. It's called Wellfleet. Wellfleet. On the upland heath above Marconi, I watch a hawk keying into prey above broom crowberry and poverty grass, above the ocean swelling with seals and the 2 souls a great white and browning storm waves took into the dark. Controlled fire sustains this terrain, management by match. After small burns, a renewal of native brush, thicket of ground shrub. Could it be the same with us? Gutted, glutted, casualties of argument. After we've destroyed each other, could cinder conjure a new start? Thank you.
Thank you. And extra gratitude to Rebecca, who had a really long conversation with me on the phone as I was making some decisions about proceeding with the book and talking through just the world of publishing poetry, which was unbelievably helpful as we started to plan this project. So thank you again. We have 2 more readers. Next, we're going to the Sawtooth Mountains with Jack Black.
Hello, thank you. In particular, thank the audience for joining. The audience, of course, is just as of value and importance to any reading. The Sawtooth Range, if you're not familiar, is a mountain range of the Rocky Mountains located in central Idaho. This poem came from an experience where my wife and I went on a camping trip. We had just recently moved to Idaho from Colorado, and we were feeling a little homesick, and so we decided to head to the mountains. The day after our wedding, I sold my car to one of my best friends for $800 and said goodbye to Denver. We packed up Sam's car with our clothes, books, pots, and pans, and drove 900 miles to western Idaho. After the shock, high excitement, and sleepless days, we finished unpacking and looked around at our new place, knowing we had changed our course for the better. The following morning, we elected to do something familiar, so of course we went camping. In our half-torn up 1993 road atlas that we refused to replace, we decided on a spot north up in McCall along Redfish Lake. I didn't find this out until afterward, but we stayed at the same campground where Richard Brautigan wrote 2 of his books while on a honeymoon in the 1960s. The newlyweds thought the location so beautiful they stayed for a month. We made it home for 2 nights. We swam, canoed, fished, cooked over the fire, napped in the hammock, read, etc. On the 3rd day, I tried out our new camera gifted for our wedding. On our hike, I took a photo of the Sawtooth Mountains and later framed it in the living room. When I look at it now, it fills me with both joy and sadness. Not break your heart level sadness, but emotionally sad. Joy because of taking a chance, trusting a decision, and knowing there's beauty everywhere. Sadness because the mountains remind me of Colorado, And when it reminds me of Colorado, I mean, it reminds me of the Rocky Mountains, because it is the Rocky Mountains. When I see those beautiful peaks rising up to the heaven of space, it reminds me of my friends and how we made a pact when we first all met that we didn't want to be apart for long. So in agreement, we would all someday move west together like a band to a place like Colorado and never leave. Thank you.
Our book has an epilogue. It has 2 poems in it. One is by Jean Twaranite. It's called The Trail Back. And the other is by Susan Marsh, who is our last reader tonight. And her poem is called Asset Protection.
Yeah, this is not about a particular park. It's about all the parks, I think. And I hope it's kind of a reprise of what we've heard tonight, which has all been very inspiring and beautiful. So thank you all. Asset protection. Let us secure our assets. Bright laundry day air, water we can drink, a place to walk and daydream, the rush of water, the quiet pulse of the earth, and those who share it, ants and otters, earwigs and eagles, birch and aspen, lichen and seaweed, ourselves and one another. Let us manage our wealth, land that can keep giving to all who come to receive. Creeks that meander and deepen, sedge at their margins, knitting them into place, trout dreaming in their shadows. Forests that mature and decay and spill their dividends to the future. They will only grow in value. Thank you.
Maybe we could do one more round of applause
For all the poets. Thank you very much.
We're so glad you're here.
Very lovely work. Yeah.
Such an honor, especially to hear you read your work aloud. We can't thank you enough. And quick reminder, the 2 more events, May 5th and May 26th, with similar structure. And then the book is on Finishing Line Press, and if you want to reach out to us with any questions at all about it or anything about Parks and Points, please be in touch. Amy at Parks and Points, Derek at parksandpoints.com, and we do want to raffle off.
Don't go away again. We got the raffle. We got the raffle coming. All right. So we've got everyone's registration number into an Excel spreadsheet, and we're going to pick the number via random.org, and we're going to see who wins. Okay, hold on here. Let's see, we'll go ahead and share this here. So we got 1 through 72.
Oh, I think. Okay.
Okay, all right. Hold on, everybody. We'll
should do 60.
Well, let's get their number.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna dial in this number and let's see what we get. Okay. 66. All right. Let me see who 66 is. And it is
Steve Phan!
Steve Phan, number 66.
Oh my gosh, we were going to give you a copy of the book.
No, please, I was going to say, yeah, I don't want a copy. Please do the next one in line. I really appreciate that. And don't include me in the raffle, okay?
We were planning to give you a copy anyway.
All right,
I appreciate that.
All right. Well, we'll get random.org to run another number here. Okay, here it is. Okay, it's running. 71. It's late in the day. Oh,
it's Roy Hershkowitz.
Did they sign on? I don't know. We'll see.
Committed to.
We'll email them.
Okay.
Yeah, if they came in.
Okay.
That's my spouse.
Wait. Who?
Pam.
Oh my gosh.
Hi. I'm going to also say, please spin the wheel again, because we're having copies come to the house already. So
okay.
All right,
spin the wheel again.
Okay.
One more.
Try
okay.
one more.
A lucky winner. Okay, 16. All right, number 16
is Marion Shapiro. She's also getting a book. Right, but she might want a second copy. Marion, would you like a second copy? Well, maybe we won't. She may have signed off. She was here earlier.
All right. Well, we'll reach out. And if she doesn't, we'll reach out to the next person on the list who wins. Someone is winning this.
Spinning endlessly.
You can give books as gifts. When you have your own copy, spread the love.
Okay.
All right. Well.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for coming tonight. This was really amazing. And again, a special thanks to Ranger Steve Phan for giving an amazing presentation. This was
And all the moving poets, poets, readers, words, so beautiful.
It's been a great launch for Wayfinding, and we're excited for the coming events and for everyone's participation tonight. Thank you so very much.
Come on back, May 5th. We'll go to Hot Springs.
Yeah.
Here's some more beautiful poems.
Yeah, and feel free to also stop by with on Finishing Line site, and there's also through our website parksandpoint.com/wayfinding if you're interested in ordering additional copies.
Or playing the raffle game again.
Right.
Okay. Thanks again, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.